So I'm Beth Hemmings here with the Vita squad at Bluedot Festival, and joining me is Tim O'Brien, Professor of Astrophysics at the University of Manchester. So Tim, tell us, how can students begin big?
I think if I was giving advice to students, these days, as I do in the physics department at Manchester, I think, obviously you're there to study. And you've got to make sure you pay enough attention to that. But I think you should never forget that you're also there at university to enjoy yourself. And so I think making some space, having that sort of work-life balance is a great idea. So working out how you're going to spend time away from studies sort of energizes you for your actual studies. So, finding out what societies there are out there, maybe go and see the Students' Union, see what there is around there. Find out what the nightlife is like. If you're in a city university, there's lots going on to distract you. So as long as you don't get too distracted, I think enjoying yourself, having some time out is really, really, really important, because it gives you enough space, headspace to focus on your studies afterwards.
So it's all about just finding that balance.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was as bad as at university. If I was late for a lecture, I'd be down in the snooker room. That was my way of getting away.
Sorry, traffic was really bad.
Exactly. So I think personally, I'd say that sort of thing's fine. Don't push it too far. But some sort of balance between work and life and the rest of your life is a great thing to have.
So you're currently working on the SKA project. For people who don't know what that is, could you just explain a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, SKA is an acronym. We love acronyms in science. So it stands for Square Kilometre Array, which probably doesn't make a great deal of sense either. But no, so it's basically an array of telescopes, so a combination of individual telescopes. It has, if you were to add up the areas of each telescope, it would add up to something like 1 square kilometre. So it would be like having a telescope something like 220 times the size of this one. And that lets it see far deeper into the universe, so to much greater distances, see much fainter things. But we're breaking it up into bits and spreading it over a large area. And that lets it zoom in and see fine detail in these distant objects. And it's actually in 2 locations. It's in South Africa and it's also in Australia. So different elements of it, and there's 2 in those 2 areas of the world, but the headquarters is here at Jodrell. So we're very excited about what we're going to see when we finally get to switch on the telescope.
You are always looking into such mind-blowing, data patterns and things like that. So have you ever experienced anything that's really blown your mind, something that you didn't expect?
I mean, it's sort of, my research, I look at stars that explode. So every now and again a star explodes, and we see a sort of new star appear in the sky. And in ancient times, people used to think they were stars being born, and now we know they're usually old stars dying, they're exploding. And so I was very excited to see for the first time. So first time anybody had seen it, sitting in a room just down here, back in 2006, when we took radio telescopes spread across the whole planet. And we combined forces and we looked at this star that had just exploded, and we zoomed right in on it, and we could see the shock wave from this explosion expanding out into space. And that's a star that's 5,000 light years away. So it actually exploded 5,000 years ago, and the light was just reaching us, and we were the first ever in the world to see that. And we huddled around a computer screen in a darkened room one Friday night in 2006, and this picture appeared on the screen. So that was exciting.
It's just so hard to get your head around how far things are actually away, and like the size of things. Like in your talk earlier, you were talking about how, what was it that was X amount of times bigger than the sun. That's just so hard to get your head around.
Yeah, I know. I mean, the university. Have you ever read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? Space is big, very big. Yeah, very big. So no, it is hard to imagine. I mean, it's if you think about distances, we often, you might say, oh, it's something like 30 miles from here to Liverpool or something. And if you drove at 30 miles an hour, therefore it would take you an hour to get there. And in space we do the same thing, except the speed we pick, rather than 30 miles an hour, we have to pick something faster, and we pick the speed of light. So light travels at the speed of 300,000 kilometres every second. Wow. The Earth is about 12,000 kilometres across, so it goes 300,000, so many Earths across in 1 second. So the light from the sun that we're seeing each other by up there now. That light arriving here now set off 8 minutes ago, travelling at 300,000 kilometres a second, and that's how we tend to talk about distances. So that's when we say light years, we mean the light took a year to reach us from 1 light year away. But it travels so fast, that distance is absolutely vast. So we you know, you can forget, when you're sitting in front of your computer analysing your data, you can sometimes perhaps forget those things. But you know, I like to, occasionally I'll step outside, look up at a nice clear night sky, look at the stars, and just sort of lose myself in that, in the sort of poeticness of it all. So yeah, great stuff.
So who have you been inspired by in your life to get you into astrophysics?
I suppose. I mean, when I was a kid, I was very much into sort of sci-fi stuff. I mean, I still am into sci-fi stuff, to be frank. But when I was a kid, I can remember I used to watch Doctor Who all the time. And I used to watch Star Trek, I should say, originally, and then things like Star Wars and stuff. So science fiction was, you know, something that I remember from an early age, reading and watching stuff on the telly and things. And so it turned out then, you know, I was quite good at maths and quite good at physics and stuff, and I just sort of went along that route. I remember trying to decide what to do at school when I did O-levels, as they used to be called, the GCSEs, and I was trying to decide between, was I going to be a marine biologist or an astronomer? Yeah. And so in the end, I went down the astronomy route, and sure enough, I've happened to be an astronomer, which is a bit lucky. But anyway, there we go. Yeah, probably the sci-fi stuff that inspired me, and some good teachers, you know, who you know, encourage you to sort of be interested in stuff. So yeah.
So do you take inspiration from your old teachers to be the greatest teacher you can be at the University of Manchester?
Yeah, I like to think I'm reasonably good at teaching. I mean, the students claim I am anyway, that's what I hear. But yeah. So, I mean, I see the job of a lecturer as being, it's sort of infotainment. It's like, because you've got to deliver information, right? But no one wants to sit in a lecture and hear someone just sort of dryly reading stuff out. There's got to be a bit of entertainment. And so really what you're doing is you're telling a story about whatever the topic is. It doesn't matter what the topic is, you're telling people a story, and you want people to get engaged with that story, and then they'll probably remember that story as well. So it's partly that. It's a good lecturer should be a good performer, really, as well as, you know, delivering the actual key information. You've got to deliver it in the right way.
All about delivery.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And I think, you know, I don't know. I like showing my holiday snaps. They're obviously relevant, but, you know, astronomy holiday snaps when I'm teaching astronomy. But, you know, that sort of thing I think is what you're looking for.
Wonderful. So more recently, you've begun some work looking into the search for extraterrestrial intelligence. Have you experienced any close encounters yet?
Not personally. I mean, I've never. I mean, you hear people talking about seeing UFOs and things, and undoubtedly, I mean, you see anything in the sky that. You know, a bright light or something that you don't know what it is, then by definition it's an unidentified flying object.
Sure, yeah.
It's up there in the sky, you don't know what it is, so it's unidentified. There's absolutely no evidence that there's ever been any flying saucers or extraterrestrials visited the Earth. So, sadly, you know, it would be nice, but there's no hard evidence for that. Usually we get a lot of calls when the planet Venus is bright in the sky, because it's so bright, it's just surprising, and people ring us up and say, you know, there's this bright light in the sky, what is it? And often it's something like the planet Venus, but sometimes there's things we can't say exactly what they were. I think the chance of them being extraterrestrials, it's not impossible, but there's certainly no evidence that there is. And we haven't yet detected signals from extraterrestrials with this telescope. We'd love to, you know, absolutely. Who wouldn't want to pick up a signal from an extraterrestrial, I think. Yeah, and that would be amazing. And, you know, maybe in our lifetime we might. The trouble is we can't even predict whether there's a chance it's going to happen, because we have no idea whether there's life anywhere apart from the Earth. And that sort of, in a sense, that brings us, you know, back to the reason for this festival, for Bluedot, is that it's about the pale blue dot of Earth in space, you know, the only place where we know life exists. And for that reason, you know, we need to look after the Earth, and we need to look after each other. You know, we need to be kind to each other. With this little tiny planet floating in the vastness of space, which is the only place we know where life exists. And I think that's an important message that we're hoping to sort of communicate, as well as have a good time.
Well, it's been communicated very well. So going back to life, alien life on Earth, there's a few theories that I've heard of that there's already like 5 different species of alien life on Earth. How true do you think that might be?
Well, I did a little chat with Wayne Coyne from the Flaming Lips yesterday. We did an in-conversation thing, and I asked the question because he likes to have a bit of a chat about UFOs and stuff. So I did ask the audience how many extraterrestrials were there in the audience, and there were quite a few hands went up. So I don't know, maybe there's more than you think. But no, so the weird. There's a thing. It has a name. It's called the Fermi paradox. So it's named after a physicist called Enrico Fermi, and he sort of famously asked the question: if aliens exist, well, where are they? And he was basically saying, well, if there were extraterrestrials on other planets, if some of them you might imagine would be more advanced than us, and maybe then they'd have the technology to travel to see us in their spacecraft, but we don't see them. There doesn't apparently, apart from the few you see wandering around a Bluedot festival, there doesn't seem to be many of them here. So that's an interesting question, because that leaves you thinking, well, actually, maybe we are alone. Maybe there are no extraterrestrials. Maybe human life is all there is. And one of the theories that gets round it is extraterrestrials are here, and they're just hiding themselves from us.
They could be hiding in the depths of the ocean, because we've only explored 1%, haven't we?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's loads and that's why sci-fi films, they're entertainment first and foremost, and who doesn't love a good entertaining film? But often, somewhere in them, there's some sort of important message, and you see films, that have exactly that. Have you ever read the book? There's a book by John Wyndham called "The Kraken Wakes." It's called, which is all about basically extraterrestrials arriving, and they sort of arrive in these spacecraft that splash into the ocean. And basically these creatures come from a planet where the conditions are such that they're more suited to being under the ocean. But it's basically all about how they then tried to take over the Earth from the depths of the ocean. And it's all about the fact that we, as humans, cannot easily get to the depths of the ocean. And so they're there where we can't get to them. But it's not, they're all proper. There's the proper scientific ideas, and it's you explore them in the context of entertainment. Why not?
Why not? So lastly, just what sort of advice would you give to students, maybe students who aren't so much into science or they're not studying science? What would you want them to take away from our interview, I suppose?
I think to just, I think we very strongly feel that science, as a scientist, we think science is as much a part of culture as art, music, literature, and so on. And that's what we're doing in the festival here, is bringing together all these different worlds that sometimes people see as different things. And I think we want to say, actually, no, we're all just human beings on the planet. We're all similar people, actually, and also we're all creative, we're all imaginative. We can all imagine worlds inside our heads, whether we're applying it to writing a story or playing a piece of music or doing a scientific model of something. It's all very imaginative and very creative, and I think get out there, open your mind up to lots of different influences. That's what I'd say. Don't get stuck down in a rut.